Look at the live studio audience. This is Team Prop Talk Fish Talk behind me. Tonight's episode is sponsored by Annapolis Yacht Sales. They are here at the show, so I encourage you to stop by and visit their exhibit. Check out some of their cool fish boats on display. So tonight, we're going to be talking about early fall rockfish action. It is on. We've had a few chilly nights, and the stripers are already responding as bunkers push out of the river and form mass schools of bait where the tributaries meet the Chesapeake. Ready to get on some early fall action? In this episode of Live Lenny, we'll take a look at how and where to effectively jig and or light tackle troll for some of the best action of the season. Without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Lenny Rudo. And I'd like to remind you all that we are live. This is a hybrid event, but you can put your comments in and we will get to them as well. So enjoy the show. See if we can find Mr. Rudo.
Hey! Work? Are we on?
Just a moment.
It work.
You're on.
Hey there, everybody. Lenny Fish Talk Magazine. Welcome to our first ever Live with Lenny being shot remotely. We are here live at the Annapolis Boat Show. I'm going to apologize in advance for all the technological snafus that I know are about to happen. This is a guaranteed disaster. But hey, we're going to roll with it, make it fun, and we're still going to get to all that cool fishing intel. Now, since we're here for the Annapolis Boat Show, I want to mention everybody, come on down here. We have a new thing going on. It's called the Fishing Spot. We've got all kinds of cool fishing goodies, gear, gizmos going on here. It is the tent. Let's see. I know where this is, but I had to write it down so I can give specific directions. It is the tent behind the Annapolis Waterfront Hotel by the Compromise Street Gate. Be sure to come on by. If you got kids, critically important people, bring them by here. We have free tackle boxes for the kids. These are stock tackle boxes. All kids are going to get them until we run out. And there's all kinds of other little goodies. We got these little squeezy fish from Take Me Fishing. I'm not sure what these are supposed to be for, but I really love them. All right, so now let's take a quick look at the fishing spot itself. I'm supposed to get a mic on here. Wait a minute. First technical snap, actually second technical snafu. All right, are we ready to go mobile here, Zach? Before we get to the fishing, we're going to take a quick look around the tent so you folks heading for the Annapolis Boat Show know what's in store for you. Let's come right over here. Look at that kayak, man. That thing is sweet. What's going on? What do we got here? Snakehead guy. He will take you out and put you on some snakeheads.
What's your name? What's the name of your company?
Real American Fishing.
There we go. Very cool. Bushman Real American Fishing. Thanks for being in the fishing spot. Let's slide right on down here to Old School Tackle. What's happening, people?
What's going on, Lenny?
You having fun?
Having fun.
All right, we got some cool gear here in Old School. People come and check it out. What do we have here? We have CCA Maryland. They've got a display here with a live living reef ball.
I'm trying to take a nap.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Oyster. Come on by and talk to Dave. He will be getting out of that costume sooner or later. It's hard to get him out of there once he gets in. Come on down here. We got Under Armour. What's happening, Under Armour? How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Thanks for being in the fishing spot.
Yeah, we got the latest from Relay Fish, so come check it out.
Very nice. Love it. What do we got over here? Holy cow, Harvester. This is a new social media entity. What's going on? So I checked out Harvester the other night. Pretty darn cool. Go to it. Harvester.com, right?
Harvester.club.
Harvester.club. And bring your kids on over here and put them on the fishing simulator. Kaylee is fighting. What are you fighting now, Kaylee? Oh, sorry. Okay. And over here we have Fishing Hut Maryland. Very cool. We got all kinds of goodies for the kids, right?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. We got Take Me Fishing. CCA's got a bunch of stuff out here. It's a blast, honestly.
Come see this guy. And we're going to slide right on over here to Captain Chris from Tackle Cove. What's up?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good. How are you, Captain Chris? Excellent. Lots of tackle here. I see a lot of stuff that I honestly use myself on the bay here.
That's right.
You got the bucktails.
We got a ready-to-go kit. Got everything from poppers to salt plastics and jigging.
Nice.
We've got some kayak stuff for you.
Nice. We got the spoons
We got the tails on this side over here, so we got a ton of stuff, people. Come on down to the fishing spot. All right, are you ready to talk fishing? I think we're ready to talk fishing.
Yep.
Let's get to it. So, I'm gonna grab my little handy gizmo here that lets me change slides, take a quick gulp. Woo! All right, so we are talking about the rockfish that are just getting going here. Now, I picked this slide to use first for a very specific reason. You can see how close that shoreline is in the background. The fall bite, when we first get these chilly nights, what's going to happen is bunker are going to start migrating out of the creeks and into the rivers, and then out of the rivers and into the bed. The rockfish know this, all right? They're very aware that these bunker are going to be pushing out. So one of the cool things about the fall bite is you don't have to have a big giant boat. You don't have to go out in the middle of the bay. Quite often you can fish right in the river mouths. Now, here's an example. This is the mouth of the Severn River. But what I'm going to say here is basically true of all the different tributaries. And I forgot to say, people, plug in your questions as usual, and Zach is going to shout them out to me. Tonight, for the first time ever, I can't see him, but he's going to shout them out to me. We may also got some live audience questions. We'll see. Who knows? But don't forget, just feel free to put those questions in there. All right. So why did I put these funny little pink arrows over here? Very simple. You can see on the chart, there's a contour there. It goes from the 8, 9, 10 foot range down into the 12, 15 foot range. This is a target zone. This is where the stripers are going to be waiting in ambush for those bunkers that are migrating out. The reason I put those red arrows in a pattern like that is because if I'm working this river, that's exactly the pattern I want to work. I'm not going to come out there into the deep water and waste my time, not unless I see birds working, then I might. But if I'm going out here and I'm not seeing anything like that, I'm going to start on a point like this, underwater point, and work my way up and around that contour. And if I'm trolling, I'll just troll right along that path. If I'm casting jigs, I'll pull up, I'll fan cast, I'll pull up a little farther, I'll fan cast, I'll pull up a little farther, I'll fan cast. Work those contours. Very, very important. Whoops, I kicked something. All right. So here's another example. This is the lower Chester River, okay? And these white blotches are some areas that it's very common to find the rockfish when these bunker are migrating out of the river. Well, what's similar to the last slide? Obviously, we got the contours. We got these drop-offs that are going down into the teens, perhaps to 20 to low 20s. What you also want to notice here, and this is sort of unique to the Chester, but it's not completely unique. Some of these areas are in either where there's a sharp bend or there's a point that sticks out into a sharp bend. What happens there is the current is rolling out, it gets swirled. The big schools of bunker, they get a little confused. They're not quite sure which direction to go in. The rockfish say, hey, I like this spot because I can get on these fish, right? So the tricky thing about these spots is they're generally only going to be best on one tide or the other. Some will be good on incoming, some will be good on an outgoing. You might want to move to different spots depending on what the tide is. Let's take, for example, the far spot over there. On either an incoming or an outcoming tide, that little bump that sticks out into the channel, that's going to get current. This spot down here in the middle, this is going to get a better blast when there's an outgoing current and it hits that long wall there, that long area. You see it marked with the 11s. Hopefully you can see it. Is it big enough on screen to see? Yeah, okay, good. So as the tide's rolling down the river, it smacks that, it swirls the current around. That's going to be a good area. Again, up here, on an outgoing tide, the water is going to slam into the shallow area and roll out. On an incoming tide, it's not hitting a whole bunch, right? If the tide were incoming, I might be looking more like over here, where this edge is going to be getting slammed by the water. Again, this is a little unique to the Chester, but not entirely. Most of the rivers that have a good amount of current, you're going to see some level of this phenomenon. The Chester just takes this really dramatic swoop here right before the mouth, and that's why it's really, really specific to this. It's a good example. All right, now, ignore the ugly guy there in the picture. Just block him out. What I want you to pay attention to here, people, is that jig. If you've tuned in to Live with Lenny, if you've read any of my stuff, if you read Fish Talk magazine, you've probably seen before, I love these 4-inch weight paddle tails. Great bait, awesome bait. This time of year, this fall bite, is when I really go for the skirt. I like to put the skirt on the bait. I like the green skirt, the chartreuse. Chartreuse skirt with a white tail is a great combination. White over chartreuse is also a great combination. But in any case, skirting baits at this time of year often is a really, really good move. Now, if I'm leaving in the morning, and let's say I've got 4 people fishing on board, half of them are going to have that skirted bait or something similar. Half of them are going to have the straight plastic paddle tail, no skirt. Why is that? Because fish change their minds. And as you can see from that little guy dangling down there in the corner, sometimes, even at this time of year, that straight tail with no added skirt is going to do better. It's going to be the ticket. If I could tell you why, I'd probably be a millionaire. This is one of those things about fish. One day they like X, the next day they like Y, and then the next day they like Z. And who knows why? The fish aren't telling us, so we don't really know. But there will be days when this late fall bite, when that straight tail, no skirt, is going to do the trick. So, again, when you leave in the morning, have half your rods rigged each way. When one or the other starts catching better, that's when you start to shift everything over to the one that's working, okay? Same goes with your color patterns. If your chartreuse over white is catching the fish, shift to chartreuse over white on your other stuff. If, let's say, pink over green, pink over lime, that's a really good combo. That might be doing the trick. When that starts working, shift everybody over. All right, now, on the next slide here, this is one for the trollers. That's Jeff up there. Jeff is a really good troller. This guy trolls a lot. And he trolls in some of the spots I fish, and I watch him catch a lot of fish. He does well. Now, I wanted to put the slide up here because you can see down at the bottom, he's got a bucktail on there. Now, bucktails once upon a time were like the lure on the bag. And then, we got our plastics and we got our silicone skirts, and we got all this other stuff. And we anglers, let's be honest about it. We see all this cool new stuff, and it's like, we gotta have it, we gotta try it, right? The good old bucktail is still an awesome bait. Now, he does have that dressed out with a tail. I'm not sure if it's a paddle or a twister, can't tell in here. But he is putting some kind of active tail on behind the lure. You can see here he's got 2 fish on at once. That's because he's fishing a tandem rig. Trolling light tackle tandem rigs at this time of year in these exact areas we've been talking about is a highly effective method. Works really, really, really well. Can't really see it in the picture. He's got about a 10-foot leader on the long one, and then maybe 5 foot on the short one, maybe a little less, maybe 3 foot on the short one. Hopefully you can see there's a triple swivel right there. That triple swivel is clipped to the main line. That's splitting it. Your heavier bucktail or lure, whichever you're going to use, is going to go on the shorty. That one's going to be your lighter. These, I'm just guessing, looking at this, are like maybe 1.5 ounces, might be 3/4 of an ounce and 1/4 ounce, whatever. Bottom line, what you want is enough weight so that if you cast it way back there as you're trolling along, and then you drop that tip back and sit it in a holder, it's going to be near bottom as you troll, whatever speed you may be choosing. Generally speaking, 2.5 miles an hour is plenty for this type of fishery. That's really all you want to be going. If you sweep the rod to give it a little extra action, yes, you will catch more fish. If those bucktails are bouncing bottom and your rod's in a holder and you see the tip doing the bottom bounce, reel them up. You don't want to drag bottom, you'll end up snagging and losing them. If you never see that happen, it's a good idea to open that bail, slack out some line, let it hit bottom, then close it, then put it in the holder, and then watch it. If it drags bottom, crank up a little bit. If it doesn't, you might want to try letting out a little more again. Bottom line is you want these to run close to the bottom, but not on it, obviously. Another good rig to put out when you're doing this form of light tackle trolling in the fall, real simple one, is a rattle trap. Excuse me. A 1 ounce rattle trap. I love the chrome and blue. Those are really effective. The chrome and pinks are highly effective. Really good lure to put out. One thing, you are going to catch throwback fish. Those rattle traps, they do have treble hooks. So before you go, you want to get some replacement hooks. You want to take those trebles off and switch them to singles. Excuse me. Zach, I am dying for an excuse to dart up there and get a drink real quick. Do we have any questions? No questions at this point. Holy mackerel, that's a record, people. Do we have any questions out here? We have a question from the audience.
Lenny, will those rattle track correctly with the single hook versus the treble? They still work the same.
So the question was, will the rattle track work and track the same with the single as opposed to the treble? And the answer is yes, as long as you put on the right hooks. A few years ago, they started manufacturing hooks where the eye, instead of being like this on the hook, is like this on the hook. Do we know, is there a name for that type of hook? Is there a name for the type of hook you use to swap out your trebles?
Inline single.
Inline single. Thank you, Zach. See, Zach knows this stuff, people. That's why I like having him around. The inline singles. You can buy them in just about all the tackle shops now. You do want to get a pair of the pliers that have the little nippy ends to push into the split ring, because if you try and use your thumbnail like some dummies do, you will hurt yourself. Don't do that. And don't try and take another hook and stick it in there and wedge it in. Don't do that. Guilty. You want to get those pliers with the little knobby ends. But yes, they will track exactly the same way, and they work great. I should have mentioned also, I forgot to mention this, when you have cloudy water or stained water, the copper color rattle traps are really, really good. I see Zach waving. He's waving wildly, people. He's jumping up and down. What is it, Zach?
What?
You were moving your finger like this. I thought it was a question. Silly me.
What's questions?
Oh, we'll go ahead. What do we got?
Kevin asked if I can also replace standard trebles with Topwater with single hooks.
So Kevin asked, should you also replace the trebles on Topwaters with singles? The answer is absolutely yes. And you know what the crazy thing is? You don't miss a lot more strikes. You really don't. Like sometimes it seems like, oh shucks, I missed one. But you fish topwater with trebles, you get the same exact thing. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's 100% even up. I'm not going to say that because I haven't done a scientific study or anything. But it seems to me like most of the time the catch rate is about the same. Might be a tiny bit lower. But I'll tell you what, for how much better it is for the fish, it is a worthy sacrifice. No doubt about it.
So another question from Lee. How do you feel about Mojo jigs? And what ounces do you use?
So Lee's asking about Mojos. Now, Mojos, so that's an interesting question. Mojos are big in Virginia. They're not as big in Maryland for whatever reason, but they're normally larger, heavier, and they're normally used in deeper waters than we're talking about right here. Do they make half-ounce Mojos? I'm not sure, honestly. If they do, that style should work absolutely fine. It really shouldn't make a difference. But again, we're talking about a relatively shallow water fishery in this particular case. If you're trolling in 20 feet of water, that's deep. If you're in 24, 25, you're probably too deep. There will be days where that's not true, particularly after a front has moved through and the fish tend to move a little deeper and sit on bottom. But generally speaking, you're going to want to target somewhere between 8 and 18, 20 feet to get this bite on these bunker moving out of the tributaries. Zach, do we have any more questions?
Gary F. asked if you're drinking transmission fluid.
Gary F. asked if I'm drinking transmission fluid. No, I am not, Gary. In fact, this is grape juice. I'm a big fan of grape juice. Any other questions, Zach, or should we move on to the next slide?
One more question from our friend Wayne Yacht.
Wayne, hello, Wayne.
Gary, when do you throw metal jigs?
When you throw metal jigs, so I would go to the metal about a month after this bite ends, when the fish are going deeper. This could last anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks, right? At some point, usually in November. Could be early November, could be late November. It really depends on the weather. At some point when that water temp gets down, 50, a little bit lower than that, this bite in the tributary mouths is going to go away. It's going to end. and the rockfish are all going to move deeper. The bunker are going to be gone from the rivers. They're going to be out in deep water. And that's when you're going to start seeing fish in 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 feet. The colder it gets, the deeper you're likely to see them go. That doesn't mean they'll never come up top. They will still come up top sometimes and turn the water. But you're going to be out there in the main stem bay, let's say on a channel edge where it drops from 25 to 35, and you're going to start seeing marks just sitting right dead on bottom. That gets really tough to fish with a jig with plastics. It can be done, but it gets really tough. You got to really light touch. You got to go to really a heavier head. That's when putting on those metal jigging spoons is gold, because you can position the boat over the fish, drop them straight down, jig them straight up and down, and catch. I'm going to throw in one more plug for going from trebles to singles. A lot of those jigging spoons, they have treble hooks, and they're not the greatest. I'm going to ask Zach if he can do us a special favor and run over to Captain Chris's display and very briefly grab one of the GI the jigging spoons, the rain minnow jigging spoons, because these are a great example of a really good jigging spoon to use for just this fishery. These sort of pink. Grab me a pink. I like the pinkies of those. Chartreuse too. Chartreuse is good. All right, so we're going to get some examples here. Thank you. Here we have a couple of these are GI Jig Rain Minnow. Are these clearly visible, Zach? Is this a good position?
Very, very good.
Excellent. The key thing here, A, it's metal, it sinks fast, it's got that slender profile, sinks like a rock. B, it's got a single hook. Now in this case, it's also got a... Captain Chris, no, it's okay. He's going to pay for it. Here he goes, Zach. He's going to pay for it. Don't worry. No, I'm not. Those are really ideal jigging spoons for working on these rockfish. All right. Might be time to go to the next slide, but let's see if there's another question on there, Zach wants to get into the mix. Should we go to the next slide?
Outdoors and Maryland says he's shooting for shallow topwater. What do you think about that?
Oh, this is a lovely time for topwater. It really is. It's a completely different fishery, right? The fish, when you're fishing topwater, usually in the shallows, daybreak, dusk, it can last longer if you've got a cloudy day. We got an angler from up on the flats up here. I'm sure he's used to throwing topwater, right? Great way to catch fish in the shallows. Those fish are hunting individual baits. They're not focusing on these schools of bunker. They're hitting silver sides, bull minnow, grass shrimp, crabs, stuff like that. That's, one here, one there. So it's a completely different fish that you're going after there. And you're generally not going to have schools of rockfish, right? You're going to have a hot spot that attracts, 1 to 5, 6, 8 fish. This is an excellent time for it. It's just cranking up. In the fishing reports, of course, our fishing reports come out every Friday at noon. The last few, the topwater bite in many areas of the bay was really just getting started for the fall. I expect it to be really good after this awful weather that we had. The water cooled off quite a bit. The wind blew. The water's stirred up. It's highly oxygenated. It really should be a great time. If I was going tomorrow at daybreak, which I can't because I'll be here at the boat show, that is definitely something I would want to do. I would want to throw topwater for probably that first hour, hour and a half of daylight, something like that. And then I'd probably switch over to jigs as fish started to shuffle out of the really shallow water. But yeah, this is a great time for it. That should go on really through November. I've seen it last into December. You need a really warm fall for that to happen. But this is a great time to be going for it. All right.
Now you mentioned Susquehanna Flats. Gary wants to know if it's possible this time of year for any shoreline opportunities from the Severn River or the Susquehanna Flats.
So Gary's asking about shoreline opportunities. Oh, heck yeah. That's going to be where I'm throwing topwater. Right now, you want to be looking...
From shore.
I'm sorry?
From shore.
From shore. From shore. I apologize. All right. So yeah, from shore, Severn River to Susquehanna. So I'm going to... Or Susquehanna. I'm going to tell you, and Zach may be able to do some magic and find this link real quick, but it's a long shot. It's going to be a tough one. We have a couple articles on fishtalkmag.com that ran in previous issues that provide you with some, I think one's top 10 shoreline hotspots. there are a couple articles like that. If you go to fishtalkmag.com, upper right-hand corner, there's a search box. And you can type in there shoreline, bank fishing, stuff like that. That will bring up those feature articles. We've been in publication for 5 years now. So there's a pretty healthy data bank at the website that includes all those older articles. How magical is that? Did you get those links? You did?
Yeah, but it's a little long. So like Lenny said, just go to the search box and type in shoreline to find that link on the website. It's the easiest way to get it.
Excellent. All right, so use that search box. That's going to do a much better job for you than my memory can do right now. You know, you certainly have places like Sandy Point. There's a jetty there you can walk out on. Thomas Point historically has an unbelievable topwater bite. Usually like the second week in November, somewhere in there, it goes on fire for like a week and you get big fish. I'm talking 30-inch plus fish. Now, Thomas Point also has some special requirements. I think you have to call ahead for a permit. Is that right? To fish Thomas Point itself? Not sure. There are some special requirements here. I don't think you can just roll up, pre-dawn. You're going to be disappointed if you just arrive. I would suggest Googling Thomas Point Park and look at the website and find out what the exact regulations are. Are you aware of anywhere up on the flats you can go from the shoreline?
I've noticed people fishing shoreline in Turkey Point.
Turkey Point. Okay.
Go out to the park, after northeast, go out to the park there, and then work your way down to the shoreline there.
And Turkey Point has showed up in the past in the reports quite a bit for the shoreline catfish angler, I believe. A lot of guys catch a lot of catfish off Turkey Point. So if just in case, did that come through the audio okay? I'm not sure if the audio made it or not, but Turkey Point is going to be an option up north, up by the flats. No others are popping into my head right now. But again, go to the website. You will find plenty of options. All right. Can we get to the next slide? Can we hit the next slide? All right. We're going to hit the next slide. Plug your questions in. We will get to them. But right now, hey, look at that. They picked up 2 trolling that tandem rig. You can see the rig hanging right there. All right. That's a highly effective way to troll. Now, here's another thing that's very effective. These baits that are made to look exactly like a little tiny bunker really work well at this time of year, because that's what the fish are eating. These bunker are like 3 inches, 4 inches. They're little fish. They're young of the year. They've been growing all summer, and there are some lures that look really exactly like them. I'm not sure. I think that's a live target, maybe.
Yeah.
Live target, yeah. And it really, it does look exactly like a bunker. Highly effective. This picture was taken in the mouth of the Severn. When we were fishing, I was fishing with my friend Glenn, and that's his hand right there. And he was throwing that lure all day long, and the rockfish were pouncing on it. And again, let us not forget the old bucktail. This was not trolling. That is contributor Eric Packard, for anybody who doesn't, whoops. All right, don't kick that. For anybody who doesn't recognize his smiling face, that's contributor Eric Packard. This was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, on the main stem bay, after the main push-up bunker had already moved through and pretty much entered the bay. Not all of them, but most of them. We skirted outside the river. We were in the main bay. He started throwing this bucktail, and it did have a trailer on it. Can't see it in the picture, but it had a trailer. And as you can see, he caught some very, very nice fish that day. Don't sell that bucktail short. That's the spro right there. I love those spros. They are really nice. You can see the remnants of the red. That used to be in red and white. Great color pattern. With the spros, I also really like the pink and whites. And you can find them with like a glitter tinsel, a couple strips of glitter tinsel. Those are really good lures. Really like that. And, oh, that's the last slide. How about that? Zach, do we have any questions?
Sure. How about umbrella rigs? What size paddle sails or spoons would you use on one of them?
Okay, so umbrella rigs absolutely are highly effective. You want to be using the 4-inch paddle tails, the 4-inch shad, if you're going to be in the rivers trolling as the peanut bunker are pushing out. 4 inches is about what you want to match these fish. I wouldn't weight them. Maybe add a little bit of weight. Most of them will get down a little bit on their own when you're only moving at 2 miles an hour. If you're using the spoons, like the Spoonbrella, right? That's one that it's basically an umbrella made of spoons. Again, you're going to want 3 to 4 inch baits. A 5-inch bait is a big bait because these bunker are all 3 and 4 inches. 5 inches is a stretch. That's not to say you won't catch on a 5-inch bait, but you want to match the hatch as closely as you possibly can. The later it gets, obviously in the season, the bigger those fish are getting. When you're actually out in the main stem bay and you start trolling those umbrellas, you may want to bump it up to the 6-inch variety. Out in the main stem bay, I think a lot of guys, particularly as it gets really late in the fall and you get some bigger fish moving up the bay from the ocean, those 6 inches really come back into form. And if we get a run of the trophy size fish in late November, early December, might happen, it might not, hasn't happened really well in the last few years. But some years, big trophy size fish do move all the way up, say through the Virginia zone of the bay up to Point Lookout, maybe up to the Salmon zone. If that happens, then you want to switch those umbrellas over to your spring gear. You want those big shad on there. That's something that may or may not happen. Again, keep your eyes on the reports.
While we're on sizing, Lee wants to know the ideal size for the spro jig, such as that, ounces.
Ideal size for the spros, for the bucktails. So, excuse me. So, Lee, there's no simple answer to that question.
For casting.
Oh, for casting. Okay. There's still no simple answer to that question because you got a lot of factors coming into play. You got how strong is the current, how strong is the wind, how deep is the water, how deep are the fish sitting. You have to judge. This is a judgment call you got to make every time you go fishing. If you're going to be fishing for this fall fishery, if I'm going to be fishing on this fall fishery, I'm going to have 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, ounce, ounce and a half. I'm going to have that whole assortment. And what I'll do is I'll start light. I want to use the lightest bucktail or jig head that I possibly can while still being able to detect bottom reliably. It's key. If you're casting, you need to be able to detect bottom because when those fish are on bottom, you want to bounce that jig over the bottom, right? If you lose touch with it 2, 3, 5 cranks, you no longer have any idea what depth your jig is running at. You really want to be able to keep constant contact with the bottom. Now, if it's blowing 15 knots and it's blowing out of the north and there's an outgoing current and your boat's just flying along, 1/2 ounce is not likely to cut it, right? You're never going to feel bottom. You're just whoosh, it all gets lost in all the wind and current. You might need to go to an ounce. You might be able to get away with 3/4 of an ounce. Depends on how deep it is, right? So there's no single answer to that question. The bottom line is go as light as you can while still reliably detecting bottom. Personally, I like using light stuff, so I tend to err on the side of lightness until I take a cast and I go, gosh, I can't feel bottom. Then I got to snip it off and size it up. All right, Zach, you got any more questions queued up there?
Sure. First, I'm just going to put this up. We got a report from Kevin Williams that he was just out today. Beautiful day. Wouldn't it be great to be out fishing? Tons of peanut bunker still in Rock Creek.
Tons of peanut bunker still in Rock Creek. Cool. And Kevin, it was, right?
Yes.
Kevin, I'm jealous. Are you jealous? I know
I'm
you're jealous.
I'm jealous.
Are you jealous? He went fishing today. We're all jealous, Kevin, okay? Because it was a gorgeous day. Some of us had to work.
So that's it. Just report on someone who was out fishing. Another Kevin Tung asked, what do you think the best method to catch rockfish this weekend? Would you troll, jig, or live line?
Interesting question. So he's asking best method for this weekend. Jig, troll, live line. So, best method for me is going to be jigging because it's what I do all the time and I love to do it. And it's what I want to do. best method for a guy like Jeff, who we were looking at earlier, is going to be the troll, because he really knows how to do that well. But for a general all-around angler, live lining is probably the most effective way to stick a hook in a fish. That's going to be true in the summer months. It's going to be true right now. Spot are getting a little bit scarcer. You can still get them. White perch will work for the rockfish. But if you really want to kill them, what you'll do is you'll go out pre-dawn. You'll look for a dock in your creek or river that has a big light on it. You'll go up to it and you'll throw a cast net. And you'll put live peanut bunker in your live well. At this time of year, nothing but nothing is going to prove more effective than a live kicking peanut bunker. It's what the rockfish are eating. It's what everybody wants to eat. It's what they fatten up on before winter. And I have had days, I'll tell you, where I was sitting there throwing my jig because I'm stubborn and I do what I like to do, and I wasn't getting bit, and the guy standing right next to me was putting a live peanut bunker on a hook with about a 1/4 ounce rubber core sinker 2 feet up the line, and just setting it back there as we drifted along. And the boat caught its limit, and I never caught a fish. Just for pure, reliable effectiveness, live lining is really hard to beat. And live lining peanut bunker right now is going to be impossible to beat. I'm going to dart in and get a drink while I ask if we have any more questions. Get some fresh grape juice.
All right.
How are we doing on time here, Zach?
It's 5:37.
5:37. So a final time. We can keep doing questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pitch them right out.
All right. So, any tips on fishing in Virginia, particularly Windmill Point, Rappahannock?
Windmill Point, Rappahannock area tips. Rockfish opened up for Virginia waters on the 4th. What was that, 2 days ago?
4th, yes.
2 days ago?
Correct.
Yeah. So rockfish are fair game now. But if you're on the Rap right now, you got a shot at rockfish, specks, redfish. You got a really good mix going on. If I were going there, I would say, hey, let's go fish the shallows. Let's find an area with some piers, with some riprap shoreline, with some points that stick out a little bit. And let's throw some light tackle, maybe topwater or daybreak, and then throw some 4-inch paddle tails, maybe a finesse, something along those lines. Let's make sure someone on the boat's throwing pink, because this is a great time in that area for the mixed bag. I'm actually heading down myself to the Pianca tank, just a little notch farther south, in a couple weeks. And this is exactly what I plan on doing. I'm very excited about it, because you can get a really nice mixed bag. You get the rockfish, you get some specks, you get some reds. I mean, come on. What more could you want? Frankly, I'm envious of you folks down there on the Northern Neck, fishing the Rappahannock, fishing those areas. Phenomenal waters. Now, I should also add, since you mentioned the Windmill Point area, there has been a ton of schools of breaking bluefish in that zone. The mackerel, with this cold, they probably all cruised. I'm not thinking we're going to find them very far north of the bay now at all. But the bluefish will hang out a little bit longer. So Zach got us a selection of lures here. All stuff that'll work for just what we were talking about. What do we got here? Oh, look at this. We got some of the old school paddles.
So, Kenny, like, you sort of rehash.
Did I jump the gun?
You did jump the gun.
I jumped the gun. I'm sorry, people. I jumped the gun.
Could you just review the types of best lures for jigging?
Best lures for jigging. Okay.
So it's kind of everything you touched on earlier.
Okay. So here's the plastic with the paddle tail, right? This is an old school. There are lots of varieties. Most are effective. Some are a pain in the butt to fish, but generally speaking, this kind of paddle tail. You didn't give me any jig heads. Oh, you did give me some jig heads. You're going to want to rig them on jig heads like this. These are GIs. These are pretty phenomenal jig heads. Top shelf. You're going to rig these up. Again, I would have a selection of sizes. These are 3/4 ounce heads. If you got on my boat right now, you'd find 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, an ounce and a half. I mean, just the whole spectrum. You want to have all that stuff. Another tail. This is a great rockfish tail right here is the BKD. I love the white. White's a great color. These are, you know, standard kind of, what would you call it? Not
Straight tail soft plastic.
yeah, straight tail soft plastic, but they're like in the Maryland zone of the Chesapeake. These are kind of the
go-to.
The go-to. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. That got it for me. The go-to. These are bread and butter jigs right here. Again, these are going to go right on jigs, jig heads, like these GIs. People ask a lot about how do you rig them. There's a slot. Does the slot go up? Does the slot go down? I like to put it through the plastic so the hook hangs down through the slot. Some people like to do it the other way. You can argue all day about it. They both work. And then back to the spoons. We got the GI rain minnows. Do we have another example here? There it is. And the bucktail, straight up bucktail. This one is a Spanky Lures bucktail. This is like a classic. That right there is a classic lure. My dad's tackle box was packed with these right here. And we used the heck out of them. And you know what? There are a few like that in my tackle box today. I seem to recall a certain somebody whose name was definitely not Zach, just totally destroying speckled trout with one of these with a tail behind it. And we were fishing Smith Island.
Which was an old school
A year ago. It was an old school tail? Oh, a paddle tail like these? It was smaller, wasn't it?
Where did I just grab all these examples?
From the fishing spot.
Right here at the boat?
Right here at the boat show. Yes. They're all right here at the boat show, people. Yeah, that standard old jig head, it can work magic.
Hey, there's a lot of Kevins tuning in today.
Different Kevins, I think.
And our good friend Kevin from the Annapolis Anglers Club, that's a question, very good question. We also saw our other good friend Kevin from the Annapolis Anglers Club earlier today.
We did.
So Kevin wants to know, as the bay water's cool, you see a thermocline on your sonar.
So the question
Should you
is,
focus your efforts above or below that thermocline?
okay, question being, if you see a thermocline as the water's cool, should you focus below or above? The answer is yes. Right? When you spot a thermocline, just for those who aren't 100% familiar with fish finders, a temperature barrier in the water will create a very faint line across your fish finder at that depth. If you're in 40 feet of water and you see a faint line at 30 feet, 32, 29, 30, that's a thermocline that you're looking at right there. It's usually broken up, usually blue or yellow, very, blue or green. It's a light color. Fish often will hide or hang just above or just below it. Could be either way. It depends on what the temperature break is and what the fish want and where the bait is. The key really is to look at your fish finder. Your fish finder, if you're seeing a thermocline, will tell you, hey, I'm seeing marks just below it. Hey, I'm seeing marks just above it. Your fish finder will tell you which area you want to focus on. That thermocline can be key sometimes too. That's something to look for. Any more Kevins? Do we have any more Kevins asking questions?
That's just one more question.
Go for it. What do we got?
So, no, just a recommended fishing spot in Solomons or Southern Maryland.
So we're looking for a recommendation on a fishing spot in Solomons or Southern Maryland. Man, wow. That's an awesome area. I got a ton of recommendations. Off the top of my head, if you're locked on land, you got the pier right there underneath of the bridge. That's a great pier, awesome facility. If you have a boat, you can launch right there. And once again, I want to refer you to the website because I know we have an entire, I think it's the top 10 hotspots on the Patuxent River article that covers a lot of those areas around Solomons. There are a slew of options. There's an awful lot of options down there. I don't know why Zach just laughed around and he got magazines. He brought back magazines. Am I supposed to show off the magazines now? No. Okay. I don't know what happened.
All right.
Go to the search box, type in Solomons, or type in Patuxent. and you will come up with several articles that will detail, more than a few of these hotspots. But again, that bridge is kind of the key right there. You got the boat ramp, you got the pier, you got it all right there.
Wayne Young asked when the Fish for a Cure auction starts. I think that's going to be the end of
Oh
October.
my.
So stay tuned for that.
Gosh. Okay, wait a minute. Hold the phone, people. It was in my original notes. Somehow I missed it to mention to everybody that we do have Fish for a Cure coming up. Now, don't forget, this tournament is all for charity, and it all goes to help, directly to help patients at the Anne Arundel Medical Center. Joanne and Geaton, I think it is. DeCesarius, thank you. Cancer Institute. There's no better cause on the face of the planet. And if you're ever looking for an excuse to go fishing that, hey, nobody can deny you, all you got to do is join Fish for a Cure, right? And it's guaranteed you're going fishing that day because it's to help people who have cancer. You can't beat it. But we're currently in the fundraising stages. I'm glad Wayne asked about that. One of the prizes we have in our fundraiser, we're going to have an online auction of sorts. It will be taking place, Zach, when will it be taking place?
End of October.
Towards the end of October. We'll get it up and running. We have 2 sets of Wayne's books in there, not 1 but 2. We'll have a set of my books. We have all kinds of fishing gear, everything from very high-end rods and reels to tackle to sets of lures, all kinds of stuff. And, look, you're going to buy fishing tackle, right? I know you're going to buy fishing tackle. You got 2 choices. You could buy it in a store and support the store. We like that. Or you could spend the money in, say, our Fish for a Cure team auction and send all your money directly to charity while you get fishing gear. I also want to mention that as this is going on, there are a lot of teams. And, if one of your buddies is on a different Fish for a Cure team, fine. Support them, not our team. Who cares? Just get involved. This is a really good tournament. We do sponsor it. We do participate. It's a really good one to be in. Oh, and we have a slew of really nice fish art coming from our contributor, Eric Packard. This guy right here, he's also an artist. I still haven't gotten over the fact that my brother outbid me on a rockfish and a bluefish painting that he did. I mean, I'm upset to this day. And that happened like 3 years ago. I don't even remember off the top of my head all the cool stuff that he's been doing throughout the course of the year just to help support the Fish for a Cure. So thank you, Eric. And people, stay tuned for that one. Stay tuned. You got any more questions? I see Zach getting ready to type.
So Christian wants to know, for live line, are spots still around? And what's better for live lining right now, spot or bunker?
Okay, so are spots still around? And what's better, spot or bunker? So, spot are still around. Before this storm, the last 6 days of storm here and the big front moved through, they were still being caught in decent numbers. They've started to thin out up north, but they were still around. That may have changed quite a bit with this front. It certainly will have put them on the move. Now, my best guess, not having gone fishing today, is that you can still get them, say, from the Bay Bridge area down, probably for a couple more weeks. But you can't beat live bunker. You can't beat live bunker. You can't. Rockfish absolutely love them. It's a little tougher to fish with them. They're delicate baits. They're very delicate fish. You overload your live well, they'll die off. Don't put in more than 1 a gallon. If you have a really good high circulation live well that's circular, you might be able to squeeze in 2 a gallon. Check it every half hour. If they start to go belly up, take it half a dozen out and just get rid of them. They die off very easily. They're delicate baits. When you put the hook through them, you want to use a thin wire hook. If you use a big, heavy, thick hook, you can sometimes split the jaws. They're delicate. But man, a rockfish, when it sees a peanut bunker, it just can't hold back. It pretty much is going to eat that thing. So, spot versus peanut bunker. I'm sorry, Mr. Spot, but I got to hand it to the bunker.
questions, if you do me a solid, grab that poster for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, people. All right, what's the right? I don't know where to hold it.
That's perfect.
Give it-
And
that's
first
perfect?
off, I would just like to say I'd like to thank folks at Maritime Fabrication. There is a small typo. It is Maritime Fabrication, the presenters for this weekend's seminar series. So Friday, Lenny, why don't you tell us what we got?
Oh, yeah. We got the whole seminar series here at the spot here, people. Tomorrow, Friday, 4 o'clock, David Sikorsky, the head of CCA Maryland, is going to give us the conservation perspective on the bay. And I'll tell you, don't be mistaken about CCA and David. I've been fishing with that guy. He loves to fish. CCA is all about improving the habitat, A, and increasing our opportunities, B. Then at 5:15, I'll be on to talk about how to catch more rockfish this fall. Fish Talk Angler-in-Chief Lenny Rudo will cover. That's me. That's me. I'll be back at 5:15 tomorrow. Saturday at 4 p.m., Eric Packard, that guy, is going to be here to talk to people about how to catch snakeheads. Now, let's face it, everybody's dying to catch snakeheads these days, right? These fish have become big. Eric knows how to catch them. He catches a lot of snakes. So if you want to learn all about fishing for snakehead, be here Saturday at 4 o'clock. And don't forget, right over there, we have a snakehead guide with us. So, I mean, come on. If you want to learn about the snakeheads, people, come to the fishing spot. Then Saturday at 5:15 p.m., I'll be back on again. It's going to be a big Q&A session, people. You know, one of the things we've learned doing Live with Lenny for, I don't know, what have we been doing it now, like 2 years, 3 years, something like that. One of the things we've learned is only plan to talk for like 20 minutes because we get like 40 minutes of Q&A. People really seem to respond best to the Q&A. People have different questions in their heads, different areas they fish. And so we decided for that Saturday at 5:15 was just going to be a big, giant Q&A. We'll talk about whatever topics you people want to talk about. Woo! And that is the entire Fishing Spot Seminar schedule, sponsored by Maritime Fabrication.
They will not be live broadcasts. So you have to come to the boat show to check out sponsors.
That is correct. They will not be live. They will just be here. Thank goodness, because I can't take the stress. Well, folks, I think that's about what we got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I'll just jump back on here. It's fun to, you know.
Yeah, wrap it up, Zach.
I just want to thank our sponsor again. I'm going to put up, their web address if you can't make the show. Annapolis Yacht Sales. Make sure you check their offerings out on AnnapolisYachtSales.com. This is 50th. Nice Harbor now. We're on our way over to the city dock. You're tuning in right now. Not a show. Come down to Annapolis. 50th anniversary celebration going on right on Market Street. And also, we'll be here all weekend. You meet the five folks who produce right behind me. Finally, M6 is my company seats.
Thanks for tuning in, people. Good night.